in today's rapidly changing world. I would invite Mr. Tim Curtis, my colleague, to please introduce the session. Tim.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome again, everybody. So just to give a bit of contour to the session, I remind that the MONDIACULT 2022 declaration highlights the intrinsic relationship between culture and the economy, emphasizing how culture contributes to economic growth and social development. The declaration underscores that the cultural economy has a direct impact on job creation, sustainable economic growth, and innovation. And in that sense, public policies should recognize culture as a strategic resource for economic development, as well as integrate culture into national development strategies and establish a conducive framework for cultural industries to thrive and contribute to global economic well-being. And what we found in the follow-up survey on the 2022 declaration, the economic dimension of culture is being increasingly addressed by national authorities through the development and implementation of policies, through increased financial resources being allocated, and through support for cultural creative industries, as well as the protection of cultural workers' rights and international cooperation. So a sustainable cultural ecosystem is defined as an integrated framework that fosters the development and resilience of cultural and creative industries while promoting inclusion and economic growth. However, policymakers face challenges in ensuring an equitable distribution of resources within the sector and in bridging the gap between education and the industry, which also emerged from the follow-up survey. The MONDIACULT 2022 decision also addresses the issue of cultural heritage in times of crisis, emphasizing that its protection is vital in such situation, and it acknowledges the importance of addressing losses and damages caused by conflicts, natural disasters, or the illicit trafficking of cultural property, and shows that many countries are committed to strengthening international cooperation to prevent the looting and destruction of cultural heritage, underscoring the need for adequate legal frameworks to safeguard cultural assets in these circumstances. And in our follow-up survey, we found that national authorities have generally identified key areas of interest concerning culture and heritage in crisis and emergency. And these include policy and legal frameworks, emergency preparedness and response mechanisms, recovery, and as well as recovery and rehabilitation efforts. Some of the key measures that are cited in that include the development of national strategies for cultural heritage protection, the establishment of specialized emergency response units, and the implementation of digital documentation for certain cultural assets. Nevertheless, there are some challenges that remain, and they were identified as being limited resources, challenges with coordination among stakeholders, and the need for specialized training in emergency preparedness related to cultural heritage. And concerning climate change, the MONDIACULT Declaration acknowledges the critical role of culture in addressing climate change, emphasizing the need to integrate culture into climate policies. This integration is essential to promote environmental management, protect cultural heritage, and foster synergies between culture, science, and knowledge. The declaration highlights the need to address specific challenges such as risks to cultural heritage which are posed by climate change, as well as strategies to mitigate their impacts. Moreover, the declaration emphasizes that culture, with its capacity for adaptation and resilience, can also make a significant contribution to sustainability and the development of innovative solutions to climate change threats. What we found in the follow-up survey is that policymakers are indeed working to address the intersection of culture and climate change, mainly through the integration of culture into climate policies, the implementation of environmental management practices, the protection of cultural heritage from climate-related threats, and the promotion of synergies between culture, science, and traditional knowledge systems. Some of the key initiatives include incorporating climate considerations into cultural policies, promoting sustainable cultural tourism, and leveraging traditional knowledge for climate adaptation. And some of the challenges that have been identified are the full incorporation of cultural considerations into climate action plans, as well as securing the necessary resources for adaptation and mitigation. Others include inadequate funding, institutional capacity, and the need also to improve dialogue and coordination between the culture and environment sectors. Finally, I would remind everyone that the Group of Friends for Culture-Based Climate Action at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, which is led by Brazil and the United Arab Emirates, will accompany and support efforts through its agenda. This includes strengthening resilience to climate change, preventing ineffective adaptation strategies, enhancing inclusion, inspiring positive narratives and imaginaries, and reducing the vulnerability to climate impacts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. And now I have a list of countries that raise their hands, electronic hands, in this order: Thailand, Bhutan, and Uzbekistan. May I request Thailand to please take the floor? And before Thailand begins to speak, may I also make some housekeeping announcements? Like the member states may like to address the topics, remaining concise in their interventions, not exceeding 3 minutes, so that our discussions can be as inclusive as possible. For the list of speakers, please ask for the floor by raising your electronic hand online. The Secretariat will take note of your request. After the intervention of all the registered member states, we will invite the participating organizations to take the floor for 3 minutes each. Having said that, I would request Thailand to please take the floor and begin their intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. สวัสดีค่ะ On behalf of the Ministry of Culture of the Kingdom of Thailand, I sincerely thank UNESCO and the Government of India for hosting the Asia Pacific Regional Consultation for MONDIACULT 2025. This gathering reflects our shared commitment to placing culture at the heart of sustainable development. Thailand has long recognized culture as more than just heritage. It is a powerful tool for economic growth, social cohesion, and innovation. Culture bridges divides, connect the past with the future, and foster inclusivity in the arts and creative industries. We are committed to strengthening our cultural sector and advancing regional collaboration to ensure that culture remains a key driver of sustainable development. To achieve this, Thailand, by the Ministry of Culture, has developed a comprehensive framework of 4 key policies, 3 guiding principles, 2 strategic approach, and 1 overarching goal. Aim at positioning culture as a pillar of national and regional development. Our 4 key policies focus on: first, cultural capital as an economic driver, supporting creative industries, cultural entrepreneurship, and cultural tourism to boost economic opportunities. Second, strengthening the cultural ecosystem, investing in infrastructure, digital platforms, and support systems for cultural development. Third, empowering human capital, nurturing talent through education, training, and mentorship, ensuring the next generation carries forward our cultural heritage and innovation. Fourth, expanding Thai cultural products globally, increasing the visibility and market share of Thai creative industries on international stage. To guide these policies, we apply 3 core principles as sectoral collaboration, integrating culture with science, technology, agriculture, and healthcare. Synergy among stakeholders, ensuring efficiency, transparency, and shared responsibility. Sustainability, preserving cultural identity while promoting long-term benefits for future generations. Our two strategic approach balance preserving cultural heritage while integrating innovation, enhancing the value of traditional products and services while developing new cultural industries for the global market. Ultimately, our goal is to establish the cultural economy as a key driver of national competitiveness and regional cooperation. We firmly believe that by integrating cultural heritage, creative industries, and digital innovation, we can create new opportunities, strengthen economic resilience, and enhance people's well-being. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Thailand aims to convert MONDIACULT insight into effective policies and tangible outcomes that will benefit not only our society, but also contribute to the broader Asia-Pacific region. The Ministry of Culture stands ready to work closely with UNESCO and our regional partner to translate cultural potential into economic and social impact. Let us take the opportunity to turn ideas into action, foster collaboration, and harness the power of culture to drive sustainable development. Together, we can build a more vibrant, inclusive, and resilient cultural landscape that strengthens our collective future. Thank you ขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you so much. And now it's Bhutan, which I'll take the floor, followed by Uzbekistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To highlight on this topic, I would like to highlight here that Bhutan is globally renowned for its unique philosophy of cross-national happiness, which transcends conventional measures of material wealth to prioritize holistic well-being, sustainability, and preservation of culture. This guiding principle underpins our development strategy, ensuring that economic progress is inclusive, equitable, and deeply rooted in our traditions. Our approach to sustainable tourism exemplifies this commitment, offering visitors meaningful and authentic experiences while safeguarding our culture and environmental assets for future generations. In alignment with this vision, Bhutan has recently launched a comprehensive cultural strategy aimed at harnessing our rich heritage to drive economic diversification through creative industries. This strategy includes innovative initiatives such as utilizing heritage sites as venues for high-profile events, integrating our native language, folklore, and traditional music into film industries, and exploring cutting-edge digital platforms like NFTs. These efforts reflect our ability to embrace modernity while staying firmly anchored in our cultural identity. Bhutan's deep reverence for nature, rooted in Buddhist philosophy, further strengthens our commitment to climate action. The protection of sacred forests and mountains, coupled with sustainable agricultural practices, underscores our global leadership as a carbon-negative nation. Our conservation efforts prioritize the use of indigenous materials and traditional construction techniques, significantly reducing our carbon footprint and promoting environmental sustainability. Beyond economic and environmental initiatives, Bhutan's strong sense of community and cultural solidarity has proven to be a cornerstone of resilience in times of crisis. Whether confronting natural disaster or global challenges, our cultural traditions provide a foundation of strength and unity. Heritage sites, for instance, serve not only as a place of prayer for global peace and prosperity, but also as a critical incident command centers during emergencies, as demonstrated during our recent forest fire disasters. We firmly believe that culture holds immense potential as a catalyst for addressing climate change and fostering adaptation to its impacts. While Bhutan is acutely aware of its vulnerability to climate change and the importance of environmental efforts, we also recognize the transformative power of cultural values and traditional knowledge. Bhutan calls upon the global community to embrace culture as a driver of resilience and innovation in the face of crisis, including the ongoing impact of climate change. By integrating cultural practices, indigenous wisdom, and community-led approaches, we can enhance our collective response to climate change and pave the way for a more sustainable and harmonious future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We now have Uzbekistan and then Indonesia. And this is also the time for me to ask the member states that should they want to make an intervention in this crucial second topic, now is the time to please raise your electronic hand. The Secretariat will take a note of it and I shall be announcing. I would request Uzbekistan now to take the floor.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. Is it clear from my side, the voice?
Yes, we can see you, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, honorable guests, esteemed colleagues, distinguished delegates, I thank you for everyone to organize this meaningful event, and I give my special thanks for the UNESCO and Indian side. Thank you very much. So it's our honor to address you today on behalf of Minister of Culture to discuss crucial aspects of our crucial policy, the economy of culture, and the role of culture in climate action. So, as a nation deeply rooted in the traditions of Silk Road, Uzbekistan, I recognize the culture as a powerful force that shapes our identity, strengthens our economy, and contributes to global sustainability. So Uzbekistan has always been crossroad of civilization, where culture is not only source of national pride, but also a key pillar of economic development. Today, creative industries contribute significantly to our GDP, employment, and tourism sector. So cultural and creative industries account for over 3 and 4% of Uzbekistan, employing hundreds of thousands in a sector such as crafts, music, film, design, and fashion. And Uzbekistan film industry has seen remarkable growth with over 50% more film than compared to the last year. So handcraft sector, which includes over 20,000 registered artisans, is gaining global recognition with the traditional Uzbek ceramic and our traditional Suzani embroidery miniatures being exported worldwide. So government has increased financial support for the cultural cultural business and private sector through the grants, tax incentives, and investment programs. However, the economy of culture is not just about economic output, as you know, it is about cultural sustainability. So Uzbekistan is committed to strengthening the regional and international partnership to ensure that cultural industries respect traditions while embracing modernity. So culture is not only the reflection of our identity, as I said about, but also a tool for environmental awareness and action, which demands from each side, from everyone. So Uzbekistan is a country that has witnessed, as you know, devastating consequences of climate change, particularly in the Aral Sea region, and so many of you are aware of this issue. And Uzbekistan recognized the urgent need to integrate culture into the climate policy. So, so from our side, I can also include Uzbekistan is also just actively promoting climate consciousness, cultural policies by hosting events, so many international events, as you know, also 43rd of UNESCO session is being held this year in Samarkand. So that's it from our side, and I once again thank you everyone for giving us this chance, gathering everyone, specialists from all over the world, and give and share their opinions on that crucial matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uzbekistan. I would request Indonesia to now take the floor, followed by Bangladesh and Cook Island. Indonesia. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the valuable opportunities to speak in this session. Cultural properties and heritage in Indonesia play a pivotal role in maintaining economic and prosperity. From heritage sites such as Borobudur and Prambanan Temple to cultural practices become magnets for tourists and experience culture firsthand in the vast regions of Indonesia, which brings benefits for people in the regions, from economic gains to meaningful connection and experiences. Culture is a dynamic force that shapes sustainable development, builds community resilience, and forces economic empowerment. Some of Indonesia's provinces have implemented cultural preservation practices that address issues such as changes in ecosystems and climate. A great example is the traditional Subak system in Bali, which has been inscribed as a World Heritage by UNESCO in 2012. The system maintains harmony in managing rice field irrigations to balance any season. These practices should and will be sustained for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, in the context of climate action, cultural heritage plays a pivotal role in fostering sustainability and climate resilience. In Indonesia, local wisdom has long conveyed valuable knowledge on disaster mitigation. Unfortunately, this wisdom is often overlooked, whereas it should be strengthened through scientific validation. We must explore the potential disaster mitigations based on local wisdom to enhance resilience and preparedness. Many traditions, practices, and local knowledge systems embody environmental sustainable approaches to land management, agriculture, and disaster mitigation. Indonesia advocates for greater recognition and support for this knowledge system in global climate strategies. At the same time, cultural sites and heritage assets remain vulnerable to increasing threats posed by climate change, natural disasters, and conflicts. Protecting cultural heritage from such risks requires robust policy intervention. Indonesia calls for enhanced international collaboration in safeguarding heritage sites, reinforcing adaptive management strategies, and ensuring that cultural recovery efforts are central to post-crisis rebuilding initiatives. The global community must prioritize policies that enable the protection and restoration for cultural heritage in time of crisis, not only for historical preservation, but also for social and economic recovery of the affected communities. Indonesia has responded to conditions that affect endurance of its cultural properties and heritage. For example, based on the extensive research to protect Borobudur Temple as UNESCO World Heritage from the effects of over-tourism and extreme climate changes, since 2022, Indonesia imposed a policy to restrict the amount of people climbing up to the temple, and those who ascend must wear a special designed sandals to preserve the temple's stones. These sandals are produced by the local living around the temple, giving an enormous impact of the local economy. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia also recognizes that rural communities hold immense cultural potentials. Traditional knowledge, craft, performing arts, culinary traditions, and indigenous wisdom are valuable cultural assets that can serve as a foundation for sustainable economic growth. Through Desa Pemajuan Kebudayaan or Cultural Advancements Village Policy, we aim to develop villages leveraging their unique cultural strengths, transforming them into centers of cultural and economic resilience. This initiative empowers local communities by preserving and revitalizing cultural traditions while fostering creative industries and cultural tourism as economic drivers. Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward, Indonesia supports MONDIACULT 2025 to place culture at the heart of sustainable economic development, climate resilience, and crisis recovery efforts. We must create frameworks that empower communities to harness their cultural heritage as a source of strength, economic opportunity, and environmental stewardships. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry. Thank you, Indonesia. May I now ask Bangladesh to take the chair, followed by Cook Island. Thank you.
Thank you, respected Chair, Mr. Otoni, ADG, and respected representatives from participating member states and non-government organizations. First of all, I would like to advance my thanks to you for allowing me to share some of my remarks on the core issues of this session. Respected Chair, in the post-MONDIACULT 2022 Bangladesh, efforts are underway by the Ministry of Cultural Affairs and relevant stakeholders on board to assess the contribution of culture to employment generation and overall national GDP. Having set a baseline and targets in terms of short, medium, and long-term planning to achieve in national economy from cultural sector, the government is committed to align these targets in the revised national cultural policies and guidelines. At the same time, advocacy would be expedited to adopt National Economic Development Plan, realigning culture and its role in a sustainable development. Respected Chair, in this time of climate change affecting lives and livelihoods of millions in Bangladesh, Government of Bangladesh supports indigenous and centuries-old methods of farming in low-lying areas like floating raft farming, harvesting rainwater, using traditional practices to be used in the areas affected by salinity in the northern Bangladesh. Respected Chair, as per our commitment to promoting diversity of cultural expressions and safeguarding both tangible and intangible cultural heritages, and being the signatory to Convention 1972, 2003, and 2005, Bangladesh has been actively participating in the intergovernmental meetings and training workshops organized under the aegis of UNESCO. As such, Bangladesh recognizes the support of UNESCO in getting the latest object of one of our intangible cultural heritage element, namely rickshaw and rickshaw art in Bangladesh. Respected Chair, with this, I would like to conclude. Thanking you all again.
Thank you, Bangladesh. I now have Cook Islands, and I would request the Secretariat to check if there is any other member state willing to take the floor for this session, or should I move on to the international NGOs after Cook Island has spoken? All right, Cook Islands, please go ahead.
Madam Chair, good evening again, and esteemed guests, Your Excellencies, again, I bid you good evening again from the Cook Islands, where the time is 9 p.m., quite a long way away from where we started this morning here in the beautiful Cook Islands. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to offer a broad Pacific-focused intervention to discuss the indispensable role of culture in fostering sustainable growth, with some Pacific focus on strengthening climate resilience, ensuring the preservation of our cultural heritage, particularly in times of crisis. At this second session, ladies and gentlemen, I share insights on one of our ancient practices, specifically the extraordinary tradition of island hopping, and offer valuable lessons for both climate adaptation and cultural survival. Throughout history, the people of the Pacific developed one of the most advanced systems of maritime navigation and transportation in the world. The practice of island hopping, moving entire communities and ecosystems and resources across vast distances by double-hull canoes. That was a testament to the ingenuity, the resilience, and the deep connection to the ocean that defined our way of life. This method was not only an efficient means of transport, but also a strategic response to environmental changes such as overpopulation, changes in leadership or hierarchy, and often at times social upheaval. When our communities face challenges, whether due to those instances of environmental pressure or changes in society or matters of the heart, The practice of island hopping provided an adaptive solution, ensuring survival, sustainability, and the preservation of knowledge and culture. Our ancestors who journeyed across the Pacific with incredible navigational skills demonstrated an understanding of both the environment and their community. They knew that when the island could no longer sustain them, when populations grew too large, or when there was internal shifts in social structures, migration was a way to preserve balance in both the human and environmental spheres. Entire communities were transported, and ecosystems were carefully managed as part of this process, ensuring that no one was left behind. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, today, as our world faces the realities of climate change and some of our Pacific homes more than others, we find ourselves again confronted with the limits of our environment. Rising sea levels, extreme weather patterns, and the loss of biodiversity pose direct threats to the places we call home. In the faces of these challenges, it may seem that migration, much like island hopping back in the old days, could be a solution for our communities, especially those in low-lying coastal areas of the Pacific. But let me be clear, ladies and gentlemen, leaving our homes to the mercy of rising sea levels is not the option we choose. We, the people of the Pacific, have deep ties to our land, our cultural heritage, and our communities. Our ancestors navigated the vast Pacific to find the homes that we are now living in. It is our responsibility and that of UNESCO and everyone that is on this platform to navigate a future that protects the lands and heritage that we fought to preserve. The knowledge passed down to us, including the traditional methods of land and resource management, offer innovation solutions for responding to climate change without having to abandon our homes. Rather than viewing migration as an inevitable solution, we must consider sustainable development, climate adaptation, and heritage preservation as the only way forward. In this context, the economy of culture has dual roles. Not only does it contribute to sustainable economic growth, but it also plays a central part in resilience building. Our cultural heritage is more than just a reminder of our past. It is a living, breathing expression of how we adapt, survive, and thrive in challenging environments. Ladies and gentlemen, by investing in the protection of cultural sites, integrational, traditional knowledge into climate action plans, and fostering cultural industries, we can ensure that our communities remain connected to their heritage while strengthening their capacity to face future challenges. The critical role of cultural heritage cannot be overstated. Sites of cultural and historical importance are not just landmarks. They are a source of identity, belonging, and continuity. Even in the Cook Islands, we face the loss of many of our cultural heritage sites because of encroaching title levels. As we face the threat of climate change, many of these sites, from sacred temples to traditional farming systems, are under direct threat. By prioritizing the protection of cultural heritage from cultural impacts, we safeguard not only our physical history, but the values and traditions that have shaped our societies for centuries. At the same time, we must be proactive in preparing for crisis. Natural disasters, armed conflict, thankfully, is not an everyday occurrence here in the Pacific, but environmental degradation is, and this poses existential threats to our cultural heritage. From the destruction of sacred monuments to the loss of livelihoods in cultural spaces during hurricanes, the challenge is clear. We must build resilience. In times of crisis, we must mobilize resources for the recovery and restoration of cultural sites, ensuring that they are integrated into broader disaster response and cultural frameworks. Cultural recovery must be a priority in the aftermath of crisis. By empowering local communities to take the lead in restoration efforts, supporting cultural institutions, and prioritizing indigenous culture, or the preservation of, we can ensure that our cultural legacy continues to flourish despite the challenges of the modern world. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the journey of island hopping, the legacy of our ancestors, and the role of culture in the face of climate change are intertwined. Our cultures, rooted in a deep understanding of the environment, have the potential to guide us towards sustainable and resilient futures. As we address the impacts of climate change, we must commit to protecting our cultural heritage and ensuring that our communities have the tool and the knowledge to thrive in the face of adversity. I ask you, UNESCO and everyone on this platform, help us to honor the wisdom of our ancestors, integrate traditional practice into modern solutions, and chart a path forward that reflects the strength, the resilience, and the creativity of the Pacific people. Together, we can build a future where our culture are not just surviving, but thriving, preserving the essence of who we are while safeguarding the future for generations to come. That is my challenge to all of us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cook Island. And now I must move on to the international NGOs. Secretariat may confirm if there are any more member states. All right. So I call upon the UNESCO Chair in International Law and Cultural Heritage to take the floor.
Thank you, and I'm honoured to follow the representative of the Cook Islands in his powerful and eloquent intervention. And thank you to the organisers, UNESCO and the Government of India, for this opportunity to introduce the work of collaborations which I lead, which ties with the important work of UNESCO in the lead up to MONDIACULT Barcelona later this year. UNESCO's mandate has come to the fore with the significant cultural losses sustained during recent armed conflicts and disasters, and growing awareness of the essential role of culture for recovery, reconstruction, resilience in emergency situations. I am pleased to introduce the work of two initiatives: the UNESCO Chair in International Law and Cultural Heritage, established in 2019, and the UniTwin Network on Culture in Emergencies, established last year. UNESCO Chair is an international multidisciplinary collaboration of leading researchers and educators focused on understanding and promoting cultural heritage in law, advocacy and education. We have strong ties in regions across the world, but particularly the Asia Pacific. Our work actively engages with and promotes the role of Indigenous peoples and small island developing states and women and girls in these efforts. Our work from the outset has highlighted the importance of culture in respect of sustainable development and responses to climate change in times of emergency. We have organised and hosted international conferences and webinars to address these themes and contributed to policy making at the global and local levels. I was honoured to be invited to make an intervention to the consultation organised by the Government of India during its presidency of the G20 in 2023, and I am currently involved in the preparation of Chapter 6 on artists at risk and culture in times of crises for the global report to be presented in Barcelona. This work is reinforced by our co-coordination of the UNESCO UniTwin Network on Culture in Emergencies. The UniTwin Network promotes the role of culture, heritage and diversity in emergencies to foster peace and sustainable development, an inclusive, people-centred approach to preparedness, protection, recovery and peace building, understanding and implementation of legal and non-legal tools on cultural heritage and diversity, and strengthening and fostering engagement and synergies between international, regional, national and local institutions and communities of knowledge. A priority for the network in its first phase of work is the preparation and dissemination of a cultural property preparedness practice guide and toolkit on sustainable protection of cultural heritage in the event of armed conflict and disasters for national authorities and cultural institutions, including the use of new technologies. Both the UNESCO Chair and UniTwin Network actively support efforts to reinforce the essential link between culture and human rights, peace and sustainability, including through the realisation of a standalone SDG on culture, and call for the preparation and adoption of a declaration on culture in emergencies, covering principles for fostering the centrality of culture and heritage for the promotion of resilience, peace and human rights during post-conflict and post-disaster circumstances, and the protection of cultural defenders. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. I would now invite ICOMOS Pacific to take the floor, followed by IFCCD. ICOMOS Pacific.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Thank you. We can hear
Thank
you, see
you.
you. Please take the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, respected chair. I'm Christoph Sand. I'm president of ICOMOS Pacifica. So our region spans a large and diverse geography encompassing 51 countries with climates and habitats ranking from high cold deserts through savanna grasslands, hot arid country to tropical rainforest, coral reefs and atolls. It is a region where seascapes are as important culturally as landscapes. The Pacific Ocean covers 1/3 of the planet, although the islands scattered around across it cover only 5% of its total surface. The region has a long and complex history of human settlement. In Asia, human occupation extends back several hundred thousand years, while in the Pacific, this started over 50,000 years ago. Our Pacific Island communities are often overlooked and their cultural sites are underrepresented in the World Heritage List. The region is linguistically diverse. Melanesia alone has the greatest diversity of languages per population in the world. This has given rise to a rich cultural heritage throughout the region. Of all the many factors that pose a risk to cultural heritage in the region, the most urgent and potentially catastrophic is the issue of climate change. Recent events highlight the devastation caused by wildfires, floods, cyclones, typhoons, and storm surges across many countries in the region. Already in 2025, we have seen floods and landslides in Indonesia, wildfires in Australia, cyclones in the Pacific, and such events are predicted to increase in frequency. Everywhere, coastal communities experience the progressive erosion of the seashores, erasing traditional habitation areas, cemeteries, and ceremonial sites. The infiltration of salt water into the lowland soils and water temperature rise and coral bleaching affect the abundance of traditional food resources. Cultural heritage has been demonstrated to be an important cohesive factor in the resilience of communities and their recovery following disasters. And yet, it is a factor that is often overlooked and underfunded in recovery programs. Indeed, recovery efforts often exacerbate damage to cultural places. So we recommend first, identifying and supporting the localized mechanisms of adaptation and resilience, which have proved successful components of the identity of local communities. Second, prioritizing local traditional knowledge in the management of heritage places and the environment. Third, ensuring the tangible and intangible cultural heritage is integrated into and funded in disaster management plans and post-disaster reconstruction programs. Fourth, heritage practitioners and local government authorities working with communities to identify the cultural sites and practices that are at risk, including built structures, natural resources like specific plants, birds and shells, and intangible traditions. Finally, development of programs that salvage irreplaceable eroding archaeological heritage, which is being progressively destroyed by storm surges and landslide, which erase millennia of cultural and scientific data. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. That was ICOMOS Pacifica. And now I would like to invite IFCCD, and I understand that this would be the last speaker today for this session, or do we have anyone else? We also have IFCA. So IFCCD followed by IFCA. IFCCD, please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair, Excellencies and colleagues, Once again, on behalf of the International Federation of Coalition for Cultural Diversity, IFCCD, and as a member of the EU UNESCO Expert Facility of the 2005 Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions and Cultural Ownership, I would like to express my sincere appreciation once again for the opportunity to address to this assembly. The UN Summit of the Future and the UN Civil Society Conference prior called for a paradigm shift, moving beyond the extractive economic models towards sustainability, planetary boundaries, and the global common good. The dominant framing of culture as an industry shall and can evolve into a cultural ecosystem approach, one that values cultural expressions as a knowledge system essential for conviviality, social cohesion, well-being, and environmental sustainability. This aligns with the UNESCO's recommendation on open science, which advocates for for equitable knowledge access, transparency, and cross-disciplinary collaboration. Culture, like science, is a shared knowledge system that thrives on openness, community participation, and collective preservation and innovations. We call on governments and all stakeholders to consider and adopt policies based on recognizing culture as a dynamic ecosystem, not just an economic factor. Strengthen knowledge sharing networks across cultural, scientific, and indigenous and socially marginalized communities to foster sustainability. Ensures that cultural and scientific knowledge remains a public good, resisting privatization and commercial monopolizations. Indigenous and local knowledge systems have long contributed, have been the core to the climate resilience. Recognizing these knowledge forms as a part of the open science framework allows for mutual learning between scientific research and cultural heritage preservations. However, these systems are often marginalized in policymaking. We call on governments and all stakeholders to integrate cultural heritage and indigenous knowledge into climate adaptation strategies and research, facilitate open access to climate-related cultural knowledge, ensuring respectful community, ownership, and ethical knowledge sharing. Promote environmentally sustainable cultural practices, including regenerative creative industries. The crisis, whether the climate disasters, conflicts, or displacements, threaten both cultural diversity and knowledge preservation, creation, and continuity. Cultural heritage and artistic expressions play a fundamental role in healing and resilience. We call on governments and all stakeholders to ensure cultural heritage protection and knowledge preservation are core components of crisis response strategies. Support artists, cultural practitioners and workers, and the knowledge holders affected by crisis, ensuring that they can continue their work in exile or post-crisis recovery. Strengthen regional cooperation for cultural knowledge preservation and exchange, reinforcing cultural role in social reconstruction. Culture, like science, must be understood as a global public good throughout. We call for structured participatory mechanisms that bring together cultural actors, scientists, indigenous communities, and civil society to shape policies that reflect shared knowledge, sustainability, and human dignity. Asia Pacific's cultural ecosystem holds the potential to bridge knowledge, climate action, and crisis recovery in ways that go beyond economic growth, firmly recognizing culture as a fundamental to our collective future. Madam Chair, I thank you.
Thank you so much, IFCCD. I now would call upon IFA-CCA Fakar to take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm sorry for all the acronyms. Just three small points that we would like to make from our end is that dating back to post the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact of the cultural workers IFICA did a report looking at the crisis of sustainable careers and examining the social and economic working conditions of independent arts and cultural workers. And the results were that during the pandemic, the issues that already pre-existed had really become further exacerbated, including the loss of many talent. Dating back to being one of the authors of the 2022 Global Report, the first chapter on the resilience of the cultural sectors, this became an increasing issue that the cultural and creative sectors continue to struggle with having the conditions to actually have a sustainable career. We drew on that report and looked at how important it is to have strong legal frameworks to support this. We've got 8 recommendations that we have been discussing with our members, but it also, I want to draw attention to strengthening holistic and intersectoral approaches, that it shouldn't only be the culture portfolio responsible for the working conditions of cultural workers, but more of a whole of government approach. In that sense, I want to take it to share the second point, which is the importance of viewing culture both as a dimension of society as well as a sector that needs support to develop, to ensure that dynamism. And I really reflect on Secretary from the Cook Islands, who actually did speak about this duality, because that's definitely where we're seeing the opportunities are. Yes, it is, there is economic development, and it also is a dimension of society, that one that goes beyond the actual outputs. This again is a very important aspect of the notion of what culture as a public good should be. And the last point is to say that investment is critical, and we really truly celebrate that at the UN, the Pact for the Future Declaration, that it does invoke to ensure adequate public investment in the protection and promotion of culture. And we really encourage, and we do also this with our members, to make sure that we're supporting culture as a dimension of society through the cultural rights framework, as well as the sector itself, to ensure that it can also be resilient and respond to, let's be honest, the polycrisis that the world and even locally we are experiencing, from geopolitics to the climate crisis. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all the distinguished speakers who made very valuable interventions and comments today in this part of the second session. Your contributions will enrich our discussions and reflections, and also will be very valuable for the preparation of the report. I understand from the Secretariat that there are no more speakers for this part of the session. So I would now announce a lunch break for, we have done very good time. So I believe we can break for 1 hour, 15 minutes now. 1 hour, 10 minutes, I'm told. So we resume again at 2 p.m. India time, which would be, what IST? 2 p.m. India time. Yeah. So another 1 hour, 10 minutes. I would request the Secretariat to take note of any more member states or organizations wishing to take the floor at that time. So see you all back in 1 hour, 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.